Hello. So today, I really want to be talking to you about the part two of working from a place of rest. So this is going to be wrapping up that subject area, that topic, and I think what I'm really wanting to go through is really, I suppose, sharing with you how it's worked for me, how it's played out so far in Q1. Q1 is gone already. We're already in Q2. Okay, so how is it? How is it working for me? Because obviously, working from a place of rest is a new concept that I was actually wanting to implement in this new season, in this year. Just because I realized, as senior leaders, our time is always spoken for. We always have multiple competing priorities, and it's very important that we find the time to achieve the centeredness that is required of us to go in there and impact and influence in the spaces that we've been called to. Um, okay, so this part two is really looking at the hows. So how have I tried to implement that? What techniques have I used that have actually sufficed or worked for me in Q1, and therefore I will try and be consistent and carry on with those as we go into Q2 and onwards. So there are three main for me. I think there are three key things that I've tried and tested, and I'd want to share today. So the first one of those is just being very intentional and purposeful with my time. I think I call this one a good stewardship of time, because we are serving a purpose. We're serving a purpose. We're serving His purpose for His glory, and time is so critical to be efficiently and effectively done. And so, what does that mean for me, my day to day? It has meant that those agendaless meetings. I've been very intentional on those agendaless meetings to question them, to query them, and see if I can clear them out my diary. And so far, it has worked because it's just all it takes is sending, being in, first of all, it took me being in control of my own diary, of managing my calendar. Okay, because that's the only way I'm able to identify what meeting is in and when. So it involves me being proactive. And then once I've been able to do that, I've been able to identify the meetings that actually, it sounds like I'm a nice to have in that session as opposed to adding value. And therefore, could I use my time somewhere else? And using my time somewhere else means that, I'm focusing on something else where I could add value that needs to be done more urgently. And that frees me up time in the day. So I'm not rushing around. I'm not working longer hours that I'm supposed to because I'm being very efficient in the time, in the time allocated in the day to do the things that I need to do. And therefore that frees me up the time to actually get into the centeredness and get into the place of God that allows me to rest. So sending an email, asking a question, you know, this meeting hasn't got an agenda. Can you please tell me what the headline of the meeting is? How can I help? What value do you think I could bring? Actually, there might be such and such person in my team who could be of more value, could be of more help, and has got better technical expertise than I have in this area. It's been so useful, and I think it's been very welcomed. But I think, why has this not happened before? It's because, again, it comes back to being proactive, being intentional. I found that I've not been consistent in really managing my calendar and being proactively looking at my day to day in my calendar. So that has really worked for me, and that has really given me back a lot of time where I'm able to focus um, on other areas, where it means that I can have more time, at the end of the day, middle of the day, at the beginning of the day, to, focus on being rested, basically. Um, the second thing that I've actually done as well is sharing, learning to chair meetings in my head. So this is really for one where you're going into big events. Big events could be difficult conversations. It could be, everyone reliant on you to make a decision or give direction on something that is very unpopular or contentious. or you're having to go into impact and influence very difficult stakeholders. So usually what happens is before I go into those meetings, there are already multiple voices now. And I think this, this happens to all of us. There are already multiple voices that are feeding things in my head. And I call it, that meeting that I'm the only audience, but there are various voices speaking at the same time. So what I've done with that is really taking a step back in those situations and actually go through that, that meeting, that multiple voices meeting where I'm the only audience in my head, chair that meeting, silence the voices that need to be silenced, replace them with the truths, embrace the ones that are powerful and are the truths. And I found that once I'm able to do that, then I'm actually winning, because what I've done is I've been able to make all my thoughts captive to obedience of the word of God, to obedience to the truth. And therefore, when I go into the spaces that I'm called to go into, in those big event scenarios or wherever it might be, um, I'm already, he has gone before me. So I'm already winning, basically. So that's number two. But it takes, I suppose, and that helps me, then you're better in control. You're prepared for, whatever comes out, the outcomes of the meeting, the sessions you're going into. And you could better, control the situation because you've already preempted and you've already, tried to share these things in your own mind and your own head beforehand. And the third thing, the final thing that I've been doing as well. This one is one that I'm still getting used to, because I think we're flesh and we're carnal, and our natural default is to focus on things that we feel are not going well, or we feel are not materializing in our own time or the way that we envisage it to be. So I call this one counting the blessings and name them one by one. And that basically what this means is focus on the small wins, or acknowledge and appreciate the small wins daily. Embrace the process and don't focus on the results or outcomes only. Embrace the process, understand what is happening in the process, lean into the process. And I mean, when I say the process, I mean all elements of the process, including the things that we don't like, including that very difficult stakeholder, including that big, critical feedback that you've received, because God uses everything. There is something in everything that God uses to get us to where he wants to get us to. So it's not forgetting the small wins, like what has gone well in the day, what are all the other things that are going well. Don't negate anything. Nothing is too small, it all adds up. And what I have found is, by recognizing those little blessings daily, taking each day at a time and really counting those blessings, it's kind of created space and led me more into trusting in him, trusting in the process. Relinquishing control is the main thing, and it's brought me out of anxiety, out of worry, out of stress, even when things are not looking to what I feel they should be looking like, or what has been projected, or what has been projected that it should look like, wherever the culture is in the organization. I worry not, because I know that he who has sent me here is taking me through a process, and I will never be forsaken. But I could recognize his hands, I could recognize the blessings, I could recognize the little wins, and that empowers me to keep going through the process. And therefore, what we then find is it moves us away from a place of reaction to response. So we're able to respond to things better and not react to things, which is our default self, as flesh, as carnal beings. So that's it. That's a wrap. Those are the three things that has worked for me in Q1. And of the last one, that number 3, like I said, is one that it's new to me. And because it's not my natural default state, is one that I have to be intentional and try and maintain consistency going through in quarter 2. So again, just as a recap, or a summary, number 1 is getting rid of the agenda list meetings, be more sort of purposeful intentional with your time and be a good steward of time, because that's where it all comes from. That's the only place that once you could find the time, and find and justify the time, then you'll be able to feel fulfilled in getting into his presence and actually achieving the rest that you need. The second one is chair the meetings that come up in your head, or take those thoughts captive, bring them to the obedience, replace them with the truth, and then walk into those big events and situations that you need to go into at work and be winning, for his glory. And then finally, count your blessings and name them one by one. Okay, it's a wrap. Hope this blesses you, and put it to practice in Q2.